Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture from a rogue point of view every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on youtube.com/Rogue Matter and facebook.com/We Are Rogue Matter. Like us, subscribe us, comment, do all the fun stuff, click all the buttons, do all the likey things, and help us along. I am your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my cohort in crime, the Lord of the live stream and the radio, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
Yeah.
I didn't quite butcher your. I know you like Lord of the Radio. I'm a alliteration guy. I'm going with I'm a pop culture playboy. How's that? Is that going to work? Is that a bold move? Should I do that? Should I be known as the pop culture playboy and you're the Lord of the live stream? Together, the alliteration twins, which we'd have to come up with a name for.
Again, you know what? Out of the interest of peace and harmony in this particular episode, I'm not going to comment.
Okay.
On pop culture playboy, I'm not going to have a reaction.
I'm coining that. I'm coining that right now. I don't know if it shines me in a good light or a bad light, considering. I think all the topics we have to discuss tonight, especially one in particular. We've got the Moon Knight trailer to react to.
If you want, that puts an absolute target on your back.
So I agree.
You the pop culture playboy.
I agree. I don't think there's any question about that. I can't disagree with that. That's why we'd have to go. We have the Moon Knight trailer to talk about. We've got Peacemaker, which is my single favorite thing I've seen on streaming in a long time. In a long, long time. We're going to spin the comic book racks with a pick from you for the comics that we should be reading, which is always great. I like that segment now. I like it because I'm doing more reading and it's fun. It's fun to kind of like talk positively about the stuff out there that might catch some folks' eyes and ears and everything in between. One thing I do want to mention, the Seal of Fire Exile is now on roguematter.com with a cover by yours truly. Well, not yours truly. Yours truly. By Hassan. How do I say it? How do I say it's by you?
You just say by you. That's how that.
A gorgeous cover by Hassan Godwin. We're flashing it on screen right now. It is an awesome novel written by James Massia, and it's free. You can read it right now. roguematter.com. Go check it out. Go read it. The whole thing. Flip the pages. We're not holding anything back.
Read it
Everything
now.
on Rogue Matter.
Stop watching this show and go read it.
Well, don't do it right this second. After, or you know what? Multitask.
Right. Yeah, we'll be done. We'll be done very shortly, and then you could start reading. Then you start reading. You cut right into that.
There we go. Go Rogue. Join the movement. Go Rogue. roguematter.com. But first, we start today with the Whedon Quagmire, and that Quagmire is that he. Boy, oh boy, did he pick a very interesting way to react to a lot of the Ray Fisher rumors, allegations, the controversy surrounding the Snyderverse. So for anybody who was living under a rock earlier this week, Joss Whedon had an article published through the New Yorker magazine, and it was not a straight interview. It was a feature article. So it was definitely editorialized by the writer, which I believe is Lila Sharp, if I'm correct in my guesswork, but I'll tell you in 2 seconds. Lila Shapiro. Sorry, Lila Shapiro. And it was supposedly kind of a, how did we get here feature article, but in a way, it's the first comments Joss Whedon has made about everything that happened to him, including the allegations. Like I said, with Ray Fisher, with the whole, Justice League fiasco, piggybacked on top of what his ex-wife kind of said about him in terms of, not being a true, kind of being a fraud, essentially, in terms of what he's beloved for versus, who he is actually as a person. It definitely goes very into detail regarding many of the relationships that he apparently had, the affairs that he apparently had. And also kind of shines light on the fact that he is going through sex and love, addiction therapy or rehab or whatever you want to call it. And some people say that this was his attempt to kind of counter everything and try to get back in good graces. But it seems, from at least what I saw on the internet, that the opposite effect is what ended up occurring. There were some definitely egregious quotes. Probably the number one would be the Gal Gadot quote, right? Is that probably the number one egregious quote, that English is not her first language, so she just didn't understand what I meant when I threatened her career?
That's either the one or two, depending on your perspective on it, or whatever your position is on it. But it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I don't think there's any, from my point of view, I don't think there's any taking away what he said, the quotes that were picked. But I also think it's interesting. You have to. There's two things here that you kind of have to look at and go. You got to take almost a step back and really analyze, which I don't think we do as a society, not in this social media world, not in this salacious, clickbait world that we live in, instant reaction, instant emotion. It was released on Martin Luther King Day. However, the interview took place in April. So the New Yorker, for maximum impact, considering it was a white male showrunner and in a controversy with a black male. Oh, New York Magazine. Sorry, New York Magazine. They obviously picked their spot in terms of when to release said article. Why all of a sudden now? I mean, if it was last April, before the Snyderverse cut of Justice League actually came out, or it would have been actually right after, because the Snyder cut came out in March. So it would have been, no matter what, the movie would have been out, but it would have been, I think, a more interesting take to do it then. So why hold it off? Probably for the bigger, the irony, the bigger bang for the buck, no question. The second thing is, again, this was not a straight interview. This was not him. And I think you and I were talking about it. It might have been better for him to not do a straight interview. So, at least he can kind of, if he ever does react to this, can cling to the I got misquoted thing, as opposed to a straight interview where it's very hard to say you got misquoted when it's your direct quotes. But it would be interesting to see the context in which he is actually saying these really stupid things. So it's tough.
Yeah. All the things are important to take into account. I'm not arguing that that New York Magazine didn't have its own agenda or nefarious plan for it, but I don't know, man. It's arguable as to whether or not he needed to do a mea culpa for any of the stuff, any of the behavior. You can argue that he owes the fans an explanation if quite a few of his former cast, they're not his castmates, his cast members, came up and said, yeah, his behavior was certainly questionable,
Sure.
And obviously he's an eccentric who was never curtailed for his eccentricities, was never reined in for his maybe maybe those eccentricities can come out as potentially seeming volatile to some people, which is fair. A lot of creative people are crazy, so I mean, it's a quality of endearment in our modern society for the crazy, the reclusive or crazy, eccentric, millionaire genius or something like that. So I mean, look, sure, that could have worked in his favor, but if his plan, like as you say, like, don't hit send, right?
Don't press send.
If either way, if his plan was to try to clear his name, he did it in a very bad way. Like, if something ever happens, and this has been documented, and this is how my mom used to practice these things. If something has happened where there's a tremendous disagreement, and you're kind of stepping up to the plate to explain yourself, explain whatever the reasons for your behavior was, even if it's not in the with the idea of apologizing, even if it's just to be like, okay, look, this is how it went down from my perspective.
Sure.
You're always supposed to keep it about you. Do not
Correct.
make it about other people. Keep it about yourself. Keep it centered on yourself. This is what I did. This is why I did it. This is how I feel about X, blah, blah, blah. He broke the golden rule of he came out of the gate swinging at other people. And this is a battle of perception. Who cares what the truth is? You understand what I'm saying? It's like, yes, we hope we're getting the truth, but it's still a battle of perception. Obviously, Joss Whedon is not a monster because he'd be in jail, right? He's not. He doesn't beat people up. He doesn't throw someone down a flight of steps. He didn't. Theoretically, he's considered monstrous because of a lot of his behaviors are considered beyond the pale for mainstream audiences right now. Right
now.
So if he's trying to get back into the good graces of today's audience, you got to read the room. Today's audience isn't interested in hearing how everybody else was wrong and you were right. It's not, they were willing to not hear from you forever. And now you come back and you're like, wow, this fire isn't high enough. Let me throw some more wood and gasoline on this fire.
This backpack's not a parachute.
It's just the strangest thing. I appreciate we cannot get away from the fact that it's an article and not an interview. We can't get away from it. I tend to put let me
comment on that too, because I don't want to be the defender of, again, stupid things that he said, but reading this brought to mind the movie 15 Minutes of Shame, which is a great documentary on HBO. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend streaming it. It's on there. Just go see it. It's great. And they talk about the guy who was hoarding all of the hand wipes or hand soap, sanitizer, the hand sanitizer. And he had gotten called up. So the backstory on him, was interesting because he was an Amazon reseller. That was his job. He started his own business. He would go in and he would buy stuff and he would sell it on Amazon. And what he would do is he would have a program that would tell him what are the things that are going to be hot items. And he would go and he'd make sure he'd purchase those said hot items. Amazon, meanwhile, was also selling hand sanitizer for outrageous prices when COVID hit. He was contacted to comment on Amazon's price fixing, or however you want to call it, that made it more difficult to compete with Amazon if you were a small business. That was, according to him, that's why the New York Times reporter was reaching out to him. And then what ended up happening was the New York Times reporter, instead of writing that article after talking to him, took a picture of him in front of his garage with all the hand sanitizer that he can't sell right now, or something to that extent, and wrote the hoarding article instead. And then he became public enemy number one, and it was terrible, and blah, blah, blah. The reason that I brought that to mind was, again, I'm reading this. Ray Fisher, in his comments on the article, references things that are not actually things Joss Whedon was saying in regards to the situation and the controversy. Ray Fisher is saying, like, what a crazy guy. He even said this about his mom. And it's like, yeah, but that was a speech. It might have been a weird thing to say. I don't know. I mean, maybe he was trying to compliment his mom, but it was a speech he gave at a pro-feminist award he was getting many, many years ago. And he was giving accolades to his mom. So Joss Whedon might not have known what he was doing, in the sense of, hey, this reporter wants to hear my side. That's awesome. I want to share. And to his credit, he was very, very honest about a lot of the things that he said. He was very open about, sex addiction and love addiction and having affairs and not being a good person for doing this. But I don't think in the end he truly understood what he was getting into. And look,
Well, I mean,
the truth might be. Well, hang on. The truth might be that he's not being quoted out of context in any way, shape, or form. That this was not just the best quotes, but the only quotes that that reporter could use, and he's screwed, or there's an air of mystery around it to me now.
You're kind of overlooking like the one thing though. The guy, the hoarder, was hoarding. He was lured into it under false pretenses, but it doesn't mean he didn't do what the article said he did. He just didn't think that he was the focus of the article. So it's not like there was a misstatement or a misprint of the fact that he wasn't hoarding, and the article just made it seem like he was for hits, for clicks. But in reality, he was he was a warehouse manager who was overlooking some inventory for his boss or something like that.
Right.
It's not like he was mischaracterized. It's that the intentions of the article writer were mischaracterized.
Correct.
That's like I said before, Woodward and Bernstein or whatever. That's common practice. So we're here to talk to you about this.
Right.
So just speak. And then, they decide to do a piece, that has absolutely nothing to do with what they said they were there to do. But as long as they didn't misquote or mischaracterize the person that they're the subject
Correct.
of their work, it's all fair game,
Correct.
I'm not going to deny that it's a piece that was done against him. Not going to deny it at all, but it seems like he said what he said.
No, he definitely did. He definitely did. But again,
it doesn't mean that Ray Fisher is innocent. It doesn't mean that he doesn't bear some responsibility for bringing up stuff that had nothing to do with he and Josh's interaction with one another. His like you said, his speech about his mother, and that stuff that's kind of irrelevant. That's color commentary on someone that that's confirmation bias on how you already feel about that person. It's fair if Joss is gonna be like, look, the guy was a bad actor, and so Ray Fisher goes, yeah, the guy's a bad feminist. It's fair game in the ugly war, but it's not relevant to what happened between Ray Fisher and Joss Whedon. It's not a relevant thing. So I understand that. I'm not saying that, look, I stand with Ray and he's 100% right. I mean, I do stand with him against being abused. I do stand with him. And full disclosure, as everyone knows, just as I say about Nolan's Dark Knight, I will say it every time. I am not a fan of Joss Whedon. I have never been a fan of Joss Whedon. So that doesn't mean this is a picnic for me, though. I look at that article. I read that article, and I was appalled for him. I was like, oh man, this is just. How you see there's someone in the office that you don't like. It rubs you the wrong way. You don't like him. You want to stay away from him or her, and one day they trip over a table and knock over the lunch, the craft services lunch tray or something like that, and everybody's angry at them now, and they look terrible because they're covered in food, and in their work clothes, and it's just like, look, man, this sucks. That would suck happening to anybody. I can't really laugh at you. I can't laugh at what has happened to you in front of everybody. I would not have wished that on you. Right. So it's like, I wouldn't wish the reaction of the backlash on Joss, even though I don't like his work. I don't know the man. I have no judgments about this character whatsoever from what I've been able to glean from his work. I just have not liked his work. And I have a personal vendetta, not against Josh, but against everybody who tried to roast me every time I said anything about, like, hey, isn't this like not as good as you say it is? Yeah. And then, just getting wrecked for it. So that's, if I have anything to say, it's for his legions of fans that were completely impermeable at at any idea that he wasn't the greatest geek in geek history. It's not a personal thing against him, but I have to mention that I have not liked him because we're covering him right now. So anything I say should be taken with an absolute grain of salt. It's not Schadenfreude. I'm not celebrating this stuff. I think it's sad. I think it's horrendous. I think what he said is horrendous, but I think the fact that he may or may not have thought he was doing himself a favor is also pretty horrendous, and I feel bad. I mean, look, this is OJ saying he's going to catch the real killers. This is right up there with that. It's like, oh man, dude, just take the L. Just take the L. Yeah. So I mean, look, I think, and you don't have to comment on this if you feel comfortable. I don't think it's the end for Joss. I think if he's smart enough, he goes away, or he could do this thing where like something close to what Bryan Singer is able to do, like where he can direct movies. Yeah. And his name is just not on it, but he continues to work, like Bohemian Rhapsody or something like that. I think if Joss is able to stay out of the spotlight long enough, and he might be able to still continue to work, people would still take product from him. If his ego would accept that his name is not going to go on it, I don't think he's going to starve. Also, I think he's pretty well.
He's not going to starve. Look, none of these guys.
I mean, he's getting divorced. He could be taken to the cleaners by the divorce.
No, that's true too.
If he's not adding to that revenue, that stuff is finite.
That's true.
Especially living in that kind of lifestyle.
No,
I mean, I think he can still work. I think Mel Gibson's coming back. Mel Gibson's doing Lethal Weapon 5. I think if Mel Gibson can come back, anybody can come back. Anybody. All right. So I don't think he's doomed, but I think he's gonna be in the dog pound for quite a while.
Okay.
For this.
What do you guys think? Is this the end for Joss Whedon? Next week, and we're not done with the show, but we're gonna bring on a big Joss Whedon fan in Pat Shand. He's a writer, and he's a fantastic writer, by the way. And he's again in the big Joss Whedon camp. But I want to debate. We're gonna debate with him next week about separating the art from the artist, because I think that's a bigger conversation, and it'll be an interesting topic to debate. When we come back, Moon Knight debuted, the trailer anyway. Is this going to be the crown in the Marvel Studios TV library when we come back? Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. Just a reminder, go onto roguematter.com. Check out Seal of Fire, Exile, written by James Massier with a beautifully drawn, gorgeous cover by the Lord of the Radio himself, Mr. Hassan Godwin. Everything on Rogue Matter is free. Go check it out. It's awesome. Check out the beautiful cover artwork by Hassan and read the awesome story. All free. All right, something that dropped in the Monday night playoff game, if you are a fan of football in any way, shape, or form. And if not, you have the internet and can just kind of click on stuff and you'll find it. Was the Moon Knight trailer. It's the latest.
What the heck's the matter with you?
Yeah. Well, no, you know what's funny is I was watching the football game, so I got to see the trailer on the, my giant 65-inch, or 58-inch TV screen. So I was like, kind of cool. Like usually I watch trailers on my laptop and my 13-inch laptop. So it was kind of neat to kind of see it. I think it definitely had a bigger impact. This is our Rogue reaction to it. I got to tell you, I mean, there's not to plug a show on something else, but on Screen Rant, I always send you the pitch meetings, right? Which shout out to Victoria Bennett for turning me on to the pitch meetings YouTube channel, because it's fantastic. And I recently sent you the Hawkeye one, and I thought that was a pretty good summation of Hawkeye, and then they did a great one on Loki as well too, where the last two Marvel series has kind of Loki's not so much, but Hawkeye especially felt a little more cartoonish. They kept repeating that a lot, and in a way Marvel doesn't tend to go very dark I mean, what would you say would be the darkest Marvel has gone to date in terms of anything they've done?
Probably
movie or
WandaVision.
That's you're probably right on that.
Dark subject matter. Also, I mean, Marvel did wipe out half the population of the universe. So, I mean, there's also that.
Well, I would say you're right, except they also, I mean, it was a cliffhanger. You knew they were going to bring them back, kind of thing. Like, I would sit there and say, like, dark tone, though, like a dark tone, like a Batman-esque dark tone. Like, I don't think we've gotten that, right? And I think when I watched this Moon Knight trailer, I kind of, for the first time, was like, you know what? I'm kind of seeing something I don't normally see from Marvel in a sense, that this could be, and I could be mistaken because I was clearly mistaken with how I thought the tone of Hawkeye was going to be versus what actually transpired. And again, I enjoyed Hawkeye, so I wasn't like upset with it. But this could be the darkest series that Marvel puts out. It's at least framed that way. It's framed to be something a little edgier, a little grittier. I think the closest they would do would be things that they would end up releasing on Hulu, but this is on Disney Plus. So, and this is, canon Marvel continuity. So that was my initial take from it. I thought it was cool looking. I thought the suit was cool looking. I thought, kind of building up the Oscar Isaac stuff until the end. I mean, I thought it worked. I thought the trailer worked, and I thought the suit at the end, I mean, looked pretty cool, and this could be Marvel's Batman, if they pull this off correctly. What was your Rogue reaction?
I don't know Moonlight. I'd never read Moon Knight, so yeah. I mean, I know of him, and I know the story for the most part. But I looked at it and was like, oh, cool. This will be a chance for me to see if there's something I like about this, And I love Oscar Isaac. But I mean, look, I couldn't follow that trailer. Like, that trailer's all over the place. Mm-hmm. It's a whole bunch of, and it's supposed to be that way. It's a whole bunch of discordant sights and sounds and imagery and stuff like that to accentuate his disorientation in becoming this other thing. In theory, that's what seems to be the story is going to be about. So I thought it was a well done trailer. I'm glad it's coming soon. Like, everything's coming right at you, like, oh wait, this is only a couple of weeks away. This is so, because we're so used to, especially over the pandemic, the early pandemic years. Yeah. We're so used to getting trailers from 6-7 months out. Yeah. Like, by the time the thing comes around, you don't even remember it. Now they're showing us trailers only maybe 3 or 4 weeks away. Sure. So that's kind of cool. I'll be interested to see what it's all about. I'll be interested to get to the bottom of it. And like I said, I love Oscar Isaac, so I mean, I'm excited for it, but I don't really have an opinion about it one way or the other. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if I got the impression it was going to be any more dark than. Okay, that was going to be my question. Else. Do you feel, based on what I just said, that that's the tone they were going for, like this Batman-esque, or I mean, maybe so. I mean, that's skirting really close to speculation, but. But, you're not speculating. You're commenting on what I just said. Yeah, see that? I'm saying, I'm commenting. I did comment on it. I said I didn't get a dark impression. Now you're asking, do you think that they're trying to go for that? That's me. That's you asking me to speculate what their intention is. I know your tricks. I'm not going to fall for it. But maybe. I don't know why they would, though. Stop. I mean, let Batman be. I mean, Batman's not really that hard to capture. He really isn't. He's a brooding guy who's upset, and he hangs out with gargoyles. I mean, it's not really that. Yeah. It's he's got a pathology that's pretty complicated. But I mean, to capture the mood of Batman, all you need to do is be really dark and be on the top of a building and let your cape flow in the wind, and that's be pretty much Batman for however long it takes for someone to capture that on an iPhone. So maybe so. I think there's too much of a supernatural aspect to it to really say that they're trying to ape trying to ape Batman, but who knows? Yeah. I think what's interesting too about this character is how little we really do know about him. And I don't mean that from the trailer's point of view. I mean just the only
memory I really have of New Moon Knight, I mean, I never really read Moon Knight, was the Stephen Platt cover, which was awesome. And then it's like, wow, I want to read Moon Knight now because there was a great image
That
drawn.
cover is awesome.
Yeah, it was a great cover, and I think Finch, David Finch did a cover as well too. That he drew Moon Knight for a little while too, and his costume just lends to like artists having fun with like capes and cowls, and again, it's the Batman Todd McFarlane kind of joy to drawing capes and cowls, which I personally hate drawing, but I know a lot of artists that absolutely love it.
It's not for everyone.
No, I'm just not good at it. Yeah.
It's not for everyone.
So but other than that, I don't really know anything about Moon Knight. I mean, I know enough about him to know what the trailer is trying to do in terms of the storyline. But that's just me being a pop culture playboy. So.
And that's already more than I know. I mean, I would liken it closer to Ghost Rider than Batman. Yeah. And but that's Ghost Rider is also Marvel, so why would they be ripping themselves? But I mean, it's got the same angle of the supernatural, hero identity that's more of an affliction than it is, the choice by the wearer of the persona. So, I mean, we'll see. I'm sure I'm wrong, and I'm all right being wrong.
I could be wrong too. I thought Hawkeye was going to be more diehard than Home Alone. I was wrong. When we come back, well, first of all, let us know what you think. Comment, put stuff in the YouTube comments and the Facebook comments. We will happily reply to you. We'll reply to you all week long. But coming up next, my favorite thing that has hit streaming, period. Peacemaker Rogue review coming up next. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. All right, got to tell you, in terms of expectation versus what was delivered, I got to tell you, I was extremely skeptical going into HBO Max's Peacemaker for a number of reasons. Now, James Gunn has a track record of making entertaining films, Guardians of the Galaxy being his big claim to fame or his biggest accomplishment to date. Followed by Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which was great. And then he but he also directed the revamped Suicide Squad, which was his first DC project. A movie nobody needed to reboot, but apparently he wanted to. He wanted to do it in a way that was very violent, very kind of, crazy, wacky. It had a lot of humor. It had the typical James Gunn, music playing a huge role in it. I enjoyed Suicide Squad for what it was, basically, but it was one of those things where I didn't need to see it again because I'd already seen Suicide Squad, and I don't think he added anything really of significance to that film to make it that much different. I mean, it was a better film than the original, than the David Ayer cut, but at the same time, it's not something that, wowed me to the point where I'm like, boy, I can't wait to see a spin-off from the Suicide Squad. And John Cena is a very charismatic actor. I think he will not be in the same class as The Rock, only because The Rock's actual filmography is so deep. I mean, that guy works so much. He's like the heir apparent to Samuel L. Jackson in terms of how many movies he puts out. But John Cena is right up there with The Rock in terms of making that transition from pro wrestling to acting, because he's very charismatic. He's very charming. He's fun to watch on screen. But all that being said, again, I thought his role in Suicide Squad was good. It was okay. I wasn't really looking forward to seeing him in his own thing. I didn't know what the heck could James Gunn actually do with a series that would make me, not only want to see the next episode, but can't wait to see the next episode. I was wrong. I watched that first episode right here in the studio, actually. And I immediately, from the opening dance move, the choreographed dancing of the opening theme song was like, okay, what the heck is this? Because I am intrigued. What I ended up coming away from after watching the first 3 episodes, this is what James Gunn should have done from the beginning. He didn't need to relaunch Suicide Squad. I guess he had to in the sense of who is Peacemaker, but this is what he was born to do with DC, and what he has now accomplished with this in 3 episodes is, I'm watching this going, this is DC's Deadpool. This is for the irony in the fact of, from what we've read about the tinkering in the original Suicide Squad movie, how DC was like, add more humor because we want to be more like Deadpool, and it theoretically might have crushed the film itself. According to David Ayer, it was not it was supposed to be a darker film. It was not supposed to be funny. They wanted more humor. They wanted this. They tinkered this and tinkered that because of the success of Deadpool. James Gunn gave them their new Deadpool. By the end of it, I'm like, this is definitely, Deadpool. My favorite scene, which I think you and I are going to disagree about this, is Vigilante, happily, merrily, just picking off the family like he has no problems. It gave John Cena, it gives him a conscience. He's very upset for having, spoilers if you haven't seen Suicide Squad, for killing Rick Flag. It shines a light on his upbringing with Robert Patrick, who is chillingly good, mind you, in the role of his dad. And Vigilante is just this. I thought like this typical. He could have been this typical annoying sidekick, hanger on. But that scene where John Cena can't pull the trigger, and Vigilante's like, "Move over, I got this." It was a riot. I absolutely loved it. The whole show is bonkos, and I love every second of it.
All right then.
I told you I'm excited.
Yeah, I know. I get
Remember how I ask you these things? I go, "What are you excited for?" And you're like, "I don't get excited." This I'm excited for.
I mean, I think I see why everybody loves it, and I think it is genuinely funny. And I think John Cena is, but I've always liked John Cena. But I think he's in Shatner territory of self parody, and it works for him. Whereas The Rock is very much, he doesn't self parody. He's very much The Rock. He's very much exalting his persona. I think John Cena, in a world of The Rock, realized, look, I'm not gonna do that Rock shtick. I'm gonna cast myself against type, and I'm just gonna, because everything he does is like that, which is fine. Like, like Boost Mobile, like where he's riding a cow. I mean, the guy likes to poke fun at his, at the perception you would get from looking at it. So I think the role actually works. It fits my criteria of a likable person, regardless of how despicable his behavior is, or how jaded he is. He's got a very likable persona, so it's easy to watch. My only issue with it, really, and it's not really an issue, it's just it's more mean-spirited humor, and I'm kind of over that. I didn't like. I'm not a big fan of Deadpool because of it.
Okay.
At least they keep a lot of the weird gay humor out of it. Which they overdo it in Deadpool. There's just like there over many strangely gay references in Deadpool, and you don't get whether they're trying to mock it or whether you don't get what the nature of it is. So I mean, they kind of go the opposite direction, where this guy is definitely like, he's an 80s action hero, stuck in the 2020s, right? So he's an 80s action anti-hero, actually. He's more in he's more in line with like Raw Deal and Cobra and those kind of characters. So he's kind of
you didn't care for the interrogation scene then?
It's fine. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's it's James Gunn. It's very James Gunn. It's very James Gunn. And I like I think James Gunn, I called him this. This is really weird considering the last segment. I called him a more sophisticated Joss Whedon, because if they have the same kind of beats, but in my opinion, James Gunn doesn't betray the emotionality of a moment for the joke. You know,
yes.
He kind of leans into it, whereas Joss Whedon will kind of undo any emotional credence he's developed for himself just to make a quip, just to get a laugh. And I've always disliked that. I've always felt like that's that's just taking me right. It's not immersive. Whereas James Gunn manages, he's not afraid of melodrama. He's not afraid of going for the, like even in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, spoiler, when Yondu dies and they end the film on a funeral. Like how many films successfully end on a funeral? A lot of people say that's what killed the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Is they end with spoiler? They end with Gwen
no,
Stacy's
you're not spoiling that movie for
like,
anybody. No one's going back and watching that.
Fair enough. No, there's a resurgence for Andrew Garfield Spider-Man now. Let's not pretend. But anyway, I mean, you
freaking Marvel, man.
Drop a girl off a building and drop her into a shaft, and then you end it with the Rhino in a mech suit. It's like this doesn't work at all. It just like this is a downer. So James Gunn was able to pull that off, have a major character die, and still keep it within the spirit of you still feel uplifted at the end of that movie as opposed to the other way around. So he's masterful at that stuff. I think he is the next level Joss Whedon. He's Joss Whedon, personified as if Joss Whedon had talent. But anyway, so
here's my one meta critique of it. And this is a meta critique. It's not a critique of what I'm actually watching. If you didn't know this was in the DC universe, and they make a couple references, you have, the cops kind of make a mention of like the vigilantes and this and that, and Peacemaker, makes reference to some other DC characters here and there. If you didn't know it was set in there, though, you wouldn't need it. You don't need it to be set in the DC universe. And part of me almost is upset. This is the perfect synergy of what James Gunn does well with a cast and a storyline that is just ripe for it. These body snatching aliens, butterfly, whatever the heck they are. It's got this cool like story and plot and characters. I'm just wondering was this a James Gunn original creation that he then turned into a DC show? Because all you can make right now are shows like this. Where are the original shows that we used to get so much of in the 80s? You referenced, and it's a great segue into my point here, that he's an 80s action, action anti-hero, trapped in the 2020s. That's an amazing concept. That's an amazing original concept. Peacemaker is an original concept for the most part. I mean, we don't, it's not as if they're borrowing anything from the comics. I don't even know who he was in the comics. I don't even know if he was in the comics.
Peacemaker is Suicide Squad, except, scaled down to one guy. It's the same stuff. It's the same premise.
That's it. Right. And that could in of itself be its own unique story universe. So in a way, I'm almost sitting there going, man, Warner Brothers could have built a new franchise. I mean, in a way, I guess they can. I guess it's Peacemaker, and there's more possibilities with DC. But I guess I'm in a meta way. Again, I call it a meta critique. I miss the days where people used to create original IP that had the possibility of becoming that next franchise that isn't tied under a Marvel or DC logo. And that's it. I mean, that's the only thing I can criticize about it. And it's not even it's not even criticizing the show itself. It's just sitting there kind of saying, man, this would have worked. This would work if it was part of DC or not part of DC. And in a way, having it under that DC blanket, I almost feel like
I think you're overthinking it.
I don't know. It's a meta critique.
Would you even be watching it if it wasn't under the DC blanket? If this just came out and you
agreed,
and it'd be something like, I'd be like, hey, you should watch this, and you'd be like, nah.
I know,
which is pretty much what you do anyway. So
it's very true.
You wouldn't be watching it. You wouldn't, because Ozark.
I'm in the middle of season 3 of Ozark, by the way.
Yeah, Friday.
What's that?
Friday, season 4.
Oh, is it Friday? I got to catch up. I'm in the middle of season 3 right now, so that's good. It's good timing.
Yeah,
I'm in the middle of season 2 of Cobra Kai, but then
we'll be in
got
August by the time you admit you've actually seen the whole thing.
I know.
So, all right.
No, I will. Look, I'm not holding back. I'm literally.
Yeah, you are.
I'm not holding back.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway. Like,
no, I get it. I do. I get it. I get why it being a DC property gives added incentive to watch it. But part of me just misses those days. I just miss the time when Hollywood would just, do something that's not, a comic book spinoff and come up with something original. I feel like that's
a completely different topic of discussion, though. I mean,
I know.
Like, yeah. I mean, I get you.
Yeah.
But I mean, look. I mean, Bruce Willis is making a bunch of those movies, and you see how like kind of trite that they are.
Yeah.
He's made like 10 of those movies in the last 2 months. That's another topic of discussion of what the heck happened to Bruce Willis. But anyway, we won't get into that right now.
He wouldn't.
We'll not discuss that now.
All right. What do you guys think? Is Peacemaker bonkos? Do you think it's DC's Deadpool? Do you agree with anything that I said? Because I basically dominated this segment because I'm just so freaking excited about this show. And one thing before we go. I love the fact that it comes out on Fridays or Thursday nights or whatever the case is, rather than Wednesday. I despise the Wednesday drop date. I like having things to watch on the weekend. Like, I look forward to it. Like Book of Boba Fett, which we're not going to really talk about, right now.
So why not wait till the weekend to watch it?
Yeah, but then I got to stay up on it, or else,
we
people
ain't talking
about
it. We ain't talking about it.
But we might be. We might be. And I have to carve out time. Anyway.
It's a solution in search of a problem right there, man.
What do you guys think? Leave stuff in the chat and we will respond back. When we come back, spin the comic book racks with Hassan's pick for a comic book you should be reading when we return. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. We call this segment Spinning the Racks. These are the comic books we think you should be reading.
Spin the rack, spin that rack.
Stop.
I got to tell you, we have got to have that theme song in every episode. Now we're going to do this. We're going to pick comics to read just to play the theme song. Just to play Hassan Godwin, spin those comic book racks. What do you got for us?
Okay, recently I've been reading Mike Mignola's, which is, okay, listen to this title. Mike Mignola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
Okay. Doing another podcast with Dennis Calero, who has been on this show. And he mentioned that that he was reading that. He was going over it. And I do know that Mike Mignola did the adaptation for the movie, the 1992 movie, and I think he did it in 1992, either 1992 or 93, and IDW has reprinted it, so that's why it's kind of back, and they reprinted it back in 2018, so that's why it's kind of sort of back in the main view discussion or whatever you want to call it.
Yep,
it's just beautiful, and the Mike Mignola thing is a journey that I've been on for a long time, because when I was a kid and into over detailed and cross hatching, masters like Jim Lee, and to an extent Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane especially, where there's over rendering of texture, over texturized rendering of body characters and stuff like that. Mike Mignola's art seemed, as sacrilegious as you want to call it, it seemed boring when I was a kid, and it just seemed weird. Like the body shapes were all weird, and the coloring, because he inspires this completely different color palette. Yeah, this
like
non-rendered
matte finish kind of stuff. Yeah,
non-three-dimensionally rendered color palette. A usually two-tone color palette. He and Cam Kennedy actually mastered that. Cam Kennedy is another giant from my heyday of reading comic books, but we're talking about Mike right now, so we'll talk about him. Until I did dislike his work until Gotham by Gaslight, and I read that, and I'm like, this is old. And it was as quick as turning a page. Like, this is gorgeous. Like, what the heck is my problem? This is absolutely wonderful. And there's like this guy, he manages to capture human shapes, but they're misshapen human shapes, but they look perfect. It's really a strange mixture of style and a keen eye for actual detail, because Bram Stoker's Dracula, his adaptation, is probably one of the most faithful adaptations to a movie I've ever seen in comic book form. He captures everything, all the iconography of that movie, and he captures it without. And he drew it. He didn't he didn't lightbox or or re-render it, because it's all in his style. But he's actually capturing moments, like perfect moments that are iconic in the film, and it's just brilliant. And me going over it again in my middle age, and just looking at it and just understanding, like, this was like 25 years ago, and he was wrecking it. He was destroying it even then. This is pre Hellboy. I think this comic book came out.
So I think it was right around the same time.
Yeah, it's the last thing he did before Hellboy. 1992. So it's the last thing he did before Hellboy. Before he launched off.
You're right. Yeah.
So it's like, what is this? Like, what's this guy? This guy's not even drawing. These aren't even finished pieces. I mean, it's just, this is more of a commentary on how stupid myself and my friends were back then, and in how we judged art. It's wonderful. It's absolutely. I can't recommend it higher. It's wonderful that IDW reprinted it. It's fantastic that you can still get it, for relatively, relatively reasonable price on Amazon or various other places, even eBay. I got mine off of eBay. It's just absolutely beautiful, and that's my rant. Go read Mike Reynolds' Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I can't recommend more segments where you acknowledge your faults. That's my number one. Anytime you can do that, I'm down.
You see an acknowledgement of my fault every episode, because I'm here with you, and that was a mistake.
Very true.
That's always a mistake.
But sometimes it's nice to be reminded. That is our show for the night. On a side note to what you just said, though, the movie is one of my favorite movies of all time too. So it's awesome to be able to.
And that's on Netflix again. That's back on Netflix, and it is really a wonderful movie. It's perfectly moody. So having the comic book companion, sometimes
those adaptations don't work, but in that case, I mean, how could you go wrong with the Mike Mignola, Bram Stoker adaptation?
It's beautiful. It really is. Both products are beautiful, and I recommend both of them.
That was Spin the Racks. That is our show for the night as well too. Next week we've got writer extraordinaire Pat Chan coming on. We're going to guest him his own Rogue Rage, which is articles that have aged badly. I can't wait to talk about it. We're going to talk Buffy. We're going to talk Joss Whedon. We're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff, art versus artist. We're going to get pretty deep, and we're going to find out all the cool stuff he's writing, because he's just a machine, and a prolific writing machine. We'll see you guys next week. Rogue Wave.